Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin, Matt Costa. Did I say that right? Silent assassin, Matt Costa? All right. We are here talking about the paranormal, as we do each and every Saturday night, doing it old school, just the two of us, although Stephanie might be stopping by on her way back from her event. We are going to hear from Ashley with the Week in Weird coming up in just a minute, but we also have a phone call on the line. And if you would like to call in during the show, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420, whether you are listening to the show on WBSM or if you are watching us on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com, on the Spooky South Coast app, or wherever you can access our YouTube channel. No matter how you are consuming the show, the best way to interact with us is by calling in 508-996-0500. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How are you?
This evening.
Good, Eric. How you doing? We just all right, now we're kicking through. All right. Sorry, I was just making sure we were kicking you through the stream. So how's it going tonight?
Oh, that's going well. I watch your show every Saturday. As a matter of fact, my wife and I both do. We both enjoy it.
We appreciate it.
She is very much into the mystical, and I'm sort of on the other end. But when you were talking about equipment a little while ago,
mm-hmm.
and this might sound a little odd, but as a psychologist, I would like to be a piece of equipment. I think it would be fun to go on investigations as a neutral party, neither a true believer, but not a skeptic or debunker, but to observe the observers, ask important questions. I've never been on one, but let's say you're in a room and it's night and it's dark and you're trying to be quiet because you're waiting for something to happen. Your mind hates ambiguity,
mm-hmm.
and it will start to create things. So, if something happens, it could be paranormal, but someone should also say, okay, could something else account for this?
Right. And
critical thinking kind of questions. And I thought of seeing if there was a local group that does investigations, but I thought I would ask you how you think they would receive such a suggestion.
Oh, I think that they'd be all for. What area are you in?
I teach everything, but my particular area of interest is functional neuroanatomy. So how the brain works. When I was doing therapy, I worked mostly in anxiety and depression. But now I'm just a full-time professor, and the paranormal used to be part of psychology, and we've dropped it, which I think is a terrible shame. My colleagues will have nothing to do with it.
Well,
I can't even have a conversation with them about it.
Well, one thing I can say is a place where you would be a huge help would be if somebody was dealing with a residential case, because if they were dealing with an actual, what they refer to as the client, the person who needs the help. One of the things that's lost in a lot of paranormal groups out there doing research is they jump right into things, assuming that there's a paranormal issue at hand because that's what the person is reporting. But in actuality, a lot of times it could just be something that's wrong with the person, with the dynamics of the family, with the medication that they're taking, all these different other aspects that people need to kind of wipe away as being a possibility before they start getting into the paranormal explanations.
That's an excellent point, that your client could actually have issues. Is it possible that sometimes members of the team have issues?
Yes, absolutely. And I've actually had to speak with people that have been investigating with us before about, is it something that you're experiencing, or is it just the mental state of mind that you're in, if I happen to know what's going on in your life. And it's certainly had influences over people before. It's one of the reasons why we won't let people investigate if we know that they're under the influence of anything, because it can have those type of effects on people as well. And there's
Good
just
point.
the important thing, because see, I'm not trying to sell anybody on the idea that paranormal activity is caused by ghosts, and ghosts are the souls of dead people. I think a lot of what we're experiencing when we're out there is things that we could be doing ourselves with our own minds. And if that's the case, I want to be able to explore that as a possibility. If that's one of the possibilities, I've always said that's way cooler to me than to think that it's dead people just hanging around.
Oh, I agree. And I came up with this term to describe myself. I call myself a hopeful skeptic, because I see no reason why all of this couldn't be possible. I've just never had a paranormal experience, and I've never been persuaded enough by the small amount of evidence I've seen.
Now, where are you located in the country?
I'm in. I don't know how well you know the Mid-Atlantic. I'm in Maryland. I'm about 20. Okay, I'm about an hour from D.C., an hour from Baltimore, 20 minutes from the PA border, Gettysburg. As a matter of fact, you know, a lot of the battlefields around here, I know that people, not investigative teams, but people like to go out there to see if they're going to experience, you know, dead soldiers. We have a lot of stories in our area about, you know, soldiers that march, dead soldiers that march at a certain time of year,
and I can tell you, I know a number of investigators in that area, a number of teams that if you're interested in getting involved, I can certainly find the right people to hook you up with so that you can get out there and experience, and also offer some of your own insight and expertise as well.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great. I would really like to take a crack at it.
All right, shoot me an email, tim@spookysouthcoast.com, and I'll get you in touch with some people down that way.
Okay, I'll do it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Eric. Have a great night.
Too. Thanks. Bye.
And that is what we do here. We find people, we bring them together, and then we sit back and we let them do all the work, and then just tell us how it goes.
Right.
No, but I mean that's one of the things that I think a lot of investigators are missing. Is they're missing the human aspect of what it is that they're dealing with. Everybody wants to jump right into something and thinking, all right, we got this great case of all this activity happening, and they're not looking at the people that are the ones that are calling them as, you know, I mean, everybody likes to think they have a good BS meter, and they can tell if somebody is sincere in what it is they're explaining. But, and I'm sure Eric would agree with this too, that sometimes people, they'll sound convincing because they have convinced themselves, because they don't, you know, there's a difference between believing a delusion and lying.
Right.
So if you're lying, yeah, people might be able to figure that out. But if you're wrong in something, but you're believing it and you believe it wholehearted, that's going to come across as a sincerity.
Right.
That's going to be hard to...
Not a lie if you believe it.
Right, exactly.
George Costanza.
Right. But that's exactly the case, is people will either convince themselves that what's going on is paranormal, or they'll want so badly for it to be paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the biggest telltale things whenever anybody asks me for an investigation is they say, you know, I watch all those ghost shows. And I'm like, ooh, that's, you know, that can go two different ways, the way that I see it. Because that means either you understand enough about what's going on to think that it was worth calling me and reaching out to me over, or it could mean you just want to be one of those people. Like, you just want to, you want that to be your life. You want that to be, you want to be part of that crowd.
Right.
And so it's very hard to tell which way the people want to go when it comes to that.
Like I say, there's been plenty of people who have come to us over the years, especially in the early stages, where they would bring us an album full of pictures, or they show us pictures on their phone, and they tell us what's in the picture, but they don't tell us about the picture. They tell us what they see, which I think is a mistake.
And but that happens with every investigation, where people will tell you what it is that they.
It makes me turn off. I don't know. Like, it makes me kind of be like, kind of dismiss it a little.
Like,
bit.
listen to the CVP we caught it saying "get out." You know, like, you're putting in that bias already.
Right. Like, as soon as they tell me, like, oh, don't you see like the demon face and the whatever gravestone, I'm automatically like, well, I guess.
And it's very easy to hear something.
I mean, I see it, but like, I don't know if I would have seen it if you didn't tell me.
Right. But it's also easy to, like, you know how it is, like, when you see something or hear something, you can't unsee it or unhear it. Like, the other day, I forget what it was, but you know, we were in the newsroom, Taylor and I, and we were
like Megan Fox's thumb.
Megan Fox's thumb is probably the most paranormal thing in the world. But we were in the newsroom working, and Taylor was cutting up some audio with an interview, and there was a phrase where the person who was in the interview was saying something like, you know, they gave me a key, they gave me the keys, and I forget what it was that I was hearing, but I heard it as a certain way, and then once I said it like out loud, I was like, it sounds like he's saying this. We couldn't hear anything but that.
Right.
Even though we knew he was saying they gave me the keys. So
it gets in your head.
Yeah, once it's in your head, there's just going to be that bias automatically then. So that can happen for sure.
That would be great to actually have a psychologist
on
staff.
I don't know
on
if,
an investigation.
I don't know if you were there, but were you at the Fearing Tavern the night we did the investigation, and Mike Brody was there, the comedian from Minnesota, and it was Jeff, and I think myself and Moniz and Andy, and
I think I might have.
Sarah was with us. And
might not have been in the same house as you.
Well, Sarah was. Well, this was just the Fearing Tavern. We weren't doing the other buildings.
Prior,
yeah,
maybe I wasn't there then.
This was just an investigation, okay. and so we had a woman with us who was a psychiatrist or psychologist, one of the two, and had never been on an investigation before, and so that opened up a whole new avenue for us as experiences were happening. We could turn to her and say, you know, are we wrong? Like, what are some of the other possibilities this could be? Because it just gives you another resource to be able to figure out, okay, you know, even if everybody's, you know how it goes in a paranormal investigation. Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard it. What did it sound like to you? It sounded like somebody yelling, "Get out." All right, what did it sound like to you? I thought I heard "Get out" too. You know, so everybody heard it, but it doesn't mean that it's not like that same idea of just putting the idea into each other's heads. So it's always good to have somebody that knows how the brain works. And can understand, like, I never would have thought what Professor Eric said there about, you know, just sitting there in silence. The brain doesn't like that, so it wants to hear something.
Right.
Like I always thought that if I was dead silent and I heard something, then it had to have been something because I'm purposely trying to be dead silent.
Right. Exactly.
So,
I mean, it's good to have that variety of different opinions, and like you said, to have someone who kind of knows how the brain works and knows how it kind of like puts things together that's not necessarily would go together.
That's why when a paranormal team is like, oh, me and a bunch of my friends from work all got together and formed a paranormal team, I'm like, well, that's great because you all work together and you have a good chemistry and you know each other and you trust each other. But I also like when a team comes together with a bunch of diversity too and says, well, we want people from all different walks of life because we want people to bring different perspectives and different insights and different ideas into what it is that we're doing. So it goes both ways.
Well, I think it comes down to kind of what you're in it for as far as paranormal investigation is concerned. Like, are you out there just to legend trip and have a good time and kind of investigate with your friends, or are you out there to do some serious research? I mean, like, it's a broad spectrum, and none are wrong, and like,
I mean, you can be wrong in your intention, sure, maybe,
but I mean, like, there's I'm not saying like any particular team, like a group that's doing it just for a paranormal investigation isn't necessarily better than the group that's going out there just to have some fun.
Right. It's as long as you're honest about what it is that you're doing, what your end game is.
Right.
Then,
because I think anybody, like, if you want to go out and do it. If you enjoy it, have at it.
So we're going to get into some of the deeper questions here. And this was a question that was posted by Rob, who was actually with me when we investigated the Reverend Barnard House in North Andover this past October. And we do have another event planned there for the 300th anniversary of the death of Reverend Barnard. We're calling it the Exoneration, where we are trying to get the true story out about the Reverend's actual involvement in the Salem witch trials. But this place, I mean, I've been in a lot of paranormal locations, and I've had some weird experiences in my time. And I don't know what it means, but I can tell you that in the last couple of years, the experiences have been getting weirder and weirder. It's almost like run-of-the-mill paranormal activity isn't enough for me anymore. So whatever it is that I'm dealing with has to like go a step beyond. I don't mean to like put myself as like the centerpiece of what's going on in the paranormal, but I'm just saying like it's not just enough anymore to see a shadow person. You know, I have that doppelganger experience in Winchendon that just still blows my mind and gives me goosebumps. But when we were in North Andover at this location, we're in the attic, and I mentioned it on the show before, there was a darkness in that attic. Now there's 2 windows on either side. One of the windows actually has a street light outside of it. So we have to kind of do what we can to block that from letting too much light bleed in, because we wanted it to be dark. But the darkness in the room got so dark, so thick, so enveloping that we could not see. We couldn't, our eyes never adjusted. We could not, our guests just arrived too, so they'll probably be coming in momentarily. But it was so dark, so and thick is really the only word I can use to describe it, because it was palpable, this darkness, that even after a few moments of sitting in the dark, your eyes adjust and you can see your hand right in front of your face. If you're going to have your hand like directly in front of your face, eventually your eyes adjust enough that you can see it. That never happened.
Really?
In a half an hour, 45 minutes of being in that room, in complete darkness, we could never see.
So it's like your eyes were closed, but they were open.
You know, I can't even say that, because even when your eyes are closed, you know how when you close your eyes, you'll get those like little, almost like pinpoints of light, almost like after images that will show up when your eyes are closed. We weren't even getting that. It was just as if somebody was holding a blindfold, you know, putting a blindfold over your eyes. Just that kind of complete and utter darkness. And you know, it's if I had to describe it, it's like when you've seen a shadow person, and you've seen a shadow person before, haven't you, Matt? Or no?
What I mean, can I definitively say it was a shadow person? Probably not. But I mean, there's been some weird shadows and things.
But you're familiar with the idea of that the shadow, when it's a shadow person, it's
devoid of light,
and it's darker than what's behind it. So it could be in pitch black room, but you'll still see something darker than the darkness standing 3-dimensionally in front of you. It's almost like the entire world was a shadow figure, like that level of darkness and blocking out all. And maybe it was like you were saying, maybe it was like just an avoidance of light. So I still don't know what it was that caused that. I know that the activity that started taking place was kind of on the negative side, but I've never had that kind of an experience where it became just that pitch black. And it happened not once but twice. So, you know, we're up there for, it's probably about 45 minutes, the first group, and that went on. And then the second group came in after we had taken a break. The second group comes up, and we spent over an hour in there, and we never had our eyes adjust. And it's dangerous. It really is to like sit there in that type of, especially when you have people around and, you know, you're trying to move around here and there.
It's almost like you're in a deprivation chamber.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. Like it was trying to make sure that of all the senses it could erase, like that one was the easiest one. So I mean,
do you think in situations like that is better, where you're kind of open to the possibilities, or do you think you're, in that particular case, your mind is kind of running away?
Well, in that
creating things.
In that instance, we were all convinced that it was something causing that. So nobody thought we were just like in a situation where that was happening. We thought something was.
But was there an incident that happened because of that?
We think so. We think that the spirit that came through, that this was part of its manipulation. So it's, I want to go back.
Did you guys have any, you guys didn't have any light. Well, obviously you didn't have any lights on, any other like equipment going at the
Nope.
same time?
When I do this, I turn off the devices.
I mean, just throwing a wild theory out there. Maybe,
We did turn stuff on as we went on.
Well,
as
maybe
the night went on.
maybe because like that, because an entity needs energy to manifest itself. It was absorbing whatever light energy that was around.
That could
and
very well be.
Just kind of
That's a great theory.
making it totally dark.
That's a great theory. We did pull out some devices. I was running EchoVox on my phone, but I closed the flap on my phone so that there wouldn't be any light, so that nobody would catch anything from that. So we did have a few light sources that we turned on here and there, but it was definitely making it darker than it needed to be. So that could absolutely be what was happening, is that it was taking just that light energy as one of the energy sources. And it got pretty rough, especially with some of the women that were in the room. So we'll be going back next October, and I'm friendly now with the guy who lives there, the caretaker. And I'm going to ask him, like, one of these nights in the off season, like, dude, can I just come by and go up into that attic and just see if it happens again? And because it was that mind blowing to have that experience.
Professor Eric in the chat room. I'm not sure if it was a question or if he's yelling, but he asked if it was frightening for you.
It was unnerving. It was absolutely unnerving for everybody in the room. Nobody was really scared. Nobody was really terrified. And Pseudoname just pointed out the eyes will not adjust if there is no ambient light. Well, that's the thing, though. There was ambient light. There was the light coming in from those windows. So there should have been at least enough of a light source for us to adjust. And even so, your eyes will still adjust to some degree if there's no ambient light. You'll be able to see your hand an inch in front of your face and make out at least the dimensions of your hand. We have enough of a night vision to at least see a little bit in front of us, and that wasn't happening. So it wasn't scary. It wasn't frightening. It was just, it didn't feel right.
I'd be interested to see if you had any infrared cameras or anything that was going at the same time.
Oh, we definitely will next time.
Yeah,
that'll be a definite possibility. We will certainly bring, now that we know that that's what'll happen, we're going to bring as much as we can to make that, to be able to prove it one way or another, and to be able to kind of document that as best we can, because it's like nothing I've ever experienced before. So, all right, well, I think what I'm going to do now is we will go and do the Week in Weird with Ashley, because we've got Stephanie coming in. So we will play that, and we'll be right back with more Spooky South Coast after the Week in Weird.
Have any connections to these stories, or like they don't connect to one another. They're kind of all over the board this week, but I found them all interesting. My first one is, do you ever find yourself up at midnight and think, maybe I should play a game? Well, I have the top 7 paranormal games to play in the dark. Number 7 being my favorite. 1, the Midnight Game. 2, Three Kings. 3, the Closet Game. 4, One Man Hide and Seek, which I'm still kind of about. 5, Dry Bones. 6, The Other World. And clocking in at number 7 is Bloody Mary. It's quoted from the article, Bloody Mary is one of the most famous paranormal games in existence to this day. We've all heard the urban legend based upon Mary Worth, a child murderer. But have you actually tried it? The object is to summon her spirit, much like the Closet Game. This should probably only do once, and then you should move out shortly. That's what the article says. I don't know if she go that far, but we'll see. But then you summon Bloody Mary to come into the room. You stand in front of a mirror with a candle lit, and you say her name 3 times, and she should appear behind you. I tried this as a child, and it failed miserably. So let me know if anyone else has done any of these games. I found all the 3 stories that I'm talking about on the occultmuseum.com, so check them all out. My second one being 25 people share the scariest stories from their hometowns. I love hearing about urban legends or hometown stories, so when I came across this article, I couldn't pass it up. There are 25 different stories in this article, but the one that stood out to me the most had to be probably the title of it that struck me. It's called Charlie No Face. Raymond Ray Robinson was a severely disfigured man who lived for years in Pennsylvania and walked the streets at nighttime. Robinson was severely burned in an electrical accident as a child, and he could not go out in public in fear and creating panic. So he went for long walks at nighttime, and local tourists would drive along the road to hope to see him and meet him. They called him the Green Man. But they also called him Charlie No Face. And this tale passed on for generation after generation after generation, and to find out that there might not even be a Charlie No Face. So I guess it's up to them to figure it out, but I don't know. It's just kind of an awe to me. If I was personally had a personal connection to that, I probably wouldn't be searching for something like that. I'd probably just kind of leave the guy to himself, but you never know. And my last one is talking about the graveyard shift. The graveyard shift, for anyone who doesn't know, is when you work the later hours at night. Working the latest shift possible is never the best. Sometimes you're beyond tired, you're working super hard, but sometimes you get hit with something that makes you rub your eyes twice and check again. One of the stories I found is called The Midnight Calls. It starts off with, I'm a nurse that worked in a psychiatric hospital for 5 years. The place was haunted as, well, you fill in the blank. I'm not going to repeat the curse word. Police would call us in the middle of the night saying some little girl who identified herself as Santana was calling 911 from a certain extension in the hospital. But that extension it was the arts and crafts room. No one would go in there at night. No one had access to that at nighttime. I assure you that there's obviously something in there, and 911 gets called a lot, and it's not by us. There are a lot of other stories on this article that you should check them out, and they're all great. And while you're done doing that, go head over to our YouTube page and give us a follow. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to stay up to date with Spooky South Coast.
All right, that was Ashley Turner with The Week in Weird, and look at that. We go and do the news, and we come back, and there's 2 more people in the studio. We have Stephanie's here now, and she's eating, and Porter's here now, and he's eating. So they're just waving. That's all right. We have cameras, so they can see that way as well. And of course, if anybody else wants to call in with any questions, 508-996-0500. We do have a caller on the line, so we'll go to that call. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast.
Hi, gentlemen. Your program is fascinating as it covers all kinds of things, deep and wide. But I had just a quick, maybe it's a trivial question for you and your co-hosts, etc. I recently was going through a box of books, and I'm a great reader. I can't read everything, but I have a book called Hollywood Ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a thick paperback, but I was wondering if you or your friends there could recommend that I at least read a couple of ghost stories about that, and who might you have in mind?
Well, I can tell you there's one great book.
No, I mean actual Hollywood people with ghost stories specifically. I got this book.
So you want to know which
are there any
which Hollywood ghosts?
Cases? Are there any famous cases that you or your friends are aware of in the studio?
Oh yeah, there's a number. There's I think is it the Roosevelt Hotel? And there's a hotel out in the Beverly Hills area where there's a mirror, where supposedly this mirror was once owned by Marilyn Monroe. And if you stand in the lobby of the hotel and you stare in the mirror, apparently Marilyn Monroe will show up in that mirror. And a lot of people have had this experience before, to the point where there's photos all over the internet that people have taken of themselves in the mirror.
That's an amazing one.
It's
another one I should look up.
The Roosevelt Hotel. I'm trying to think of what else they might have in that book. Oh, there's so many different.
Do you have that book?
I don't. I've done some research into Hollywood ghost stories for the TV shows that I've worked on. There's a lot of deaths in Hollywood. You know, there's a lot of stars who meet untimely deaths, and so that's left an impact on a lot of those places.
Yeah. Well, I'll check out that one about Marilyn Monroe for sure.
I mean, if I ever looked in a mirror and Marilyn Monroe showed up in the mirror, I'd be pretty happy about that. But some people get really freaked out by it. So,
all right, thank you very much.
Have a good night. And if anybody else wants to call in with a question, a thought, a comment, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. How was the event?
It was awesome.
Oh, hold on. I thought I pressed the button. There we go.
No, you didn't, but now you did.
That theater is great.
It was actually really nice, and right when I walked in there was a ton of energy in there. So apparently I wasn't the only one that noticed it. So
That's very true.
Did you have something happen, Porter? Something that you want to share, or?
Yeah, sure, I can share it. You know, the one thing, I just lost my ears, so I can't hear myself now.
I think she rolled over your cord.
I did not.
She keeps trying to cut my cord. The deal is here. But I was, when we were first in there, I was standing back in the back of the room with one of our friends, Heather, and as we were standing there, I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and it looked like a shadow person that just walked right through the door, right into the room. And Heather noticed it as well, and I looked at her and I said, "Did you see that?" She goes, "Yeah, did you see that?" So it started right off the bat, and then as the night went on, it got a little spookier.
There definitely is, like, I think being so close to the theater, being so close to the river, probably helps. You've got this rolling water of the Blackstone River, which there's a lot of haunted locations all along that river.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's feeding into Slater Mill. That's what's feeding into a number of different hauntings all around there. So I don't know if it's that the theater is haunted per se, or if it's just that everything around there is just charged up.
It could be both. Honestly.
I can tell you though, there's been at least I can say with confidence that there's probably been at least, how many people does that seat? 150? That theater, I think, about 150.
I honestly don't know.
So there was 150 murders that happened in that theater.
Really?
Really?
Yes, because the night that we
I didn't know
debuted
that.
an Evening of Ghost Stories and New England Legends, we killed. We just killed it that night.
You are so corny.
Killed everybody.
So there was an awful lot of setup for that joke, but no, but that's just a great place, and certainly going into it with, what your event was all about, it's going to put out nice, good, positive vibes.
It did. So we had a great time. We had a little Christmas event, and I did a gallery reading, and Dustin did his magical mystery box, but it was a Christmas version, so that was awesome. And everybody seemed really happy. We had a little, mingle time at the end, and everybody was having eggnog and punch and cookies and pie, and everybody just
Dustin
seemed
was
so
having
happy.
a lot of pie.
Yeah, I did make him stop and buy his own pie because I wasn't sure what pie to get, because I don't eat pie as often as he does.
He eats pie more than anybody I know.
Right.
But he works it off, so
Right.
it doesn't have the negative effect like it does on me. One of the good things too about holiday time is that if loved ones are wanting to kind of reach out to us, this is a good time of year to do it, because a lot of us are getting together, so we're all in one place, and it's a good place for if anybody wants to come back and visit. Everybody's kind of all gathered together, yeah.
Right, and it's a tough time for grief around the holidays too, with people worrying about, whether it's missing their past loved ones or finances or anything like that weigh on us heavily in this season. It's a great time to connect with a past loved one and, have that validation and that reassurance that they are around, they are watching over us, they are guiding us, and they do love us.
And just a little bit of a note for that last caller. Mama Cheryl messages and says that Montgomery Clift also plays the bugle at the Roosevelt Hotel.
There you go.
So there's another ghost story from the same location.
Mama Cheryl is amazing. I was just talking to her on my way home.
We tried to get the Roosevelt Hotel for it was either Ghost Stalkers or Ghost Asylum.
Did you?
And they're like, nope, we're not shutting down for a night. Are you kidding? You know how much money we make off these rooms?
Oh my goodness.
But apparently it's a great place to stay. So
Awesome.
at least if you're into the ghosts, I don't know about
Who's not into ghosts?
the full experience of being there. But we've been talking about a couple of different topics tonight. We were talking about the question came up about in North Andover in the Parson Barnard house.
Okay.
About that darkness that had enveloped us and was just insane. And one of the questions that popped up in the chat room was what the walls were made out of, and it's just a pure wood attic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like there was anything there that would have kind of made it darker than it would have seemed. But we do have a new thing that we started tonight, Stephanie, that you should be aware of.
Okay, talk to me.
That apparently when people ask a question now in the chat room,
Yep.
they're going to ask the question in all caps.
Okay.
So when you go into the chat room, next time you're here and we have the laptop set up and everything and you're in the chat room and you see the all caps, don't think that anybody's yelling at you.
Okay, perfect.
That's just, this is what the chat room people wanted to do as a way to make us see the questions stand out a little bit more.
That's
So if
fine
we want to
with
go
me.
roll back through, we can see them
Pick
stand
'em
up. But there's a question for Porter in the chat room already.
Of course there is.
And Jim wants to know what your thoughts are on the creature or thing at the Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee.
Ooh, the creature or thing. There's several different things there, and the place is so active. I mean, it's crazy active, and no matter where you're at there, you're going to run into something. I'm assuming he's talking about the one that's on the second floor upstairs, the dark entity that goes back and forth between the rooms. That thing is pretty grouchy. It likes to avoid people. It gives you glimpses of what it is, whatever the case, whatever it may be. But I've had the opportunity back years ago. Oop, crash, party foul. But I've had a case to be there with a group of people years ago, and several people with me, 12 or 15 in the group, and they experienced this thing. It kind of walked across the hallway in front of us. We saw it in the laser grid. It was a shadow figure of some type. And as we talked about it, it came back out in the hall and turned and looked at us, and then came straight in the hall at this group and then growled. And everyone heard it. That was the craziest thing. It wasn't just one person that heard it or a couple. It was everyone there in the group heard it, and then it just retreated back down the hallway, kind of just to give us a warning to be quiet and leave it alone. But it's pretty grouchy.
See, and I think that is something that we don't always take into account when we go into these places. We're all excited because we get the chance to go to this awesome haunted place that we've been thinking about going on, and we never consider the possibility that whatever's there just might not want to be bothered that night.
Mm-hmm.
That we're actually invading. I look at it like this, and I say this all the time, and people laugh at me, but would you want somebody just walking into your house uninvited,
Right,
shoving a camera or a recorder in your face and asking you questions about your, how'd you die?
Yeah.
It's kind of rude what we do.
It really is. And I think that one of the unique things about, us is that, we kind of put our spin of our own Southern hospitality to our investigations. We introduce ourselves and say, hey, we're going to come in, kind of give the fair warning, let them know what's going on, and kind of warm up to the conversation. And we try to steer away from, we do the basic questions, but I think that they get that so much, especially this day and age where everybody's into ghost hunting or paranormal investigating. They get those standard questions all the time. Are you here with us? How'd you die? How's your mom and them? All that stuff. And it's just kind of like it's repetitious for them. So if you can kind of branch out a little bit and throw some very stimulating questions out there, you may get an answer. Just like what you saw with us in Gettysburg on Haunted Towns. It was asking a question about who was the leader of the country that stayed across the way in the hotel and addressed the nation at the end of the war, and our EVP was so clear and complete. Abraham Lincoln. That's the greatest kind of answer you can get. And
it was probably something that the spirits there were happy to talk about, and not like, how did you die?
Right.
Who killed you? And
how do you feel about being dead?
like Monize's questions. I mean, we laugh when he does it, but his line of questioning is always to come in and says, listen, people love to talk about themselves, and they love to talk about what it is that they like. So he will go in and he'll start an EVP session by asking, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color?
Yep.
Just little conversational warm-ups before you get to the big ones. Right. Instead of just walking in there and, demanding answers to a question.
Or being
it's
gruesome.
Actually having a conversation.
It's awful when people are just so morbid.
Yeah.
Well, but in some cases, the other side of that coin is if they only have so much energy to be able to communicate with us, let's get right into it. Let's not pussyfoot around and just jump right into the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I look at it like this too, because being a journalist, if I'm going out to the scene of a crime, the first thing that I'm going to go up and ask somebody when I stick the microphone in their face isn't, what'd you have for lunch today? It's tell me what happened. Tell me what you saw. Tell me how this affected you. So in some ways there's that aspect too, if you're going to get the emotional response as well. So there's certainly different ways of looking at it. Chrissy says she missed me tonight.
Yep.
So.
Yep, I got to hang out with her, Miranda.
That's one.
One person.
One person that missed me.
I missed you, Tim.
Thank you. There's two.
He forced me to come here because he missed you so much.
It's nice to be missed. I just thought it's because you got him going with the Wendy's now every time he comes up here.
That was not my idea. That was actually not me.
We got him hooked on the. Are there Wendy's down in Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay.
He had a bad experience tonight.
With Wendy's?
No.
No.
With me.
I was going to say not yet. He just started. Give him an hour or so, then.
She kind of zapped me over there though at the event.
I didn't zap you.
I don't know what you did, but it like made me sick. I was like headache, shaking, and arms tingling, sick at my stomach, and all kinds of stuff going on.
Did you go to the hospital? That sounds serious.
Sounds like where I need to be.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a little bit beyond psychic.
It was kind of crazy.
I've explained to him over the course of the past 6 months what it's like when I do readings. And, I mean, probably in depth. We talked about this a lot, because we talk a lot about, you know, how you feel when you're ghost hunting or all these different things. And I explained to him what the physical feeling is like when you're about to start doing something like that. But a gallery reading, it's even more, because you're inviting everything into the room at one time and you have to deal with it. So I told him he had to go and hide in the back, so that way he didn't distract me. I didn't read him, anything like that, which I do with, like, Heather did the same thing. She was off and hidden, and you know, because you've been in that theater, like, they set up all the chairs in the front toward the stage, and then you have that big space in the back, and I could see, like, the top of his bald head, but that was it. But I didn't realize the reason that's all I could see was because he was looking in his lap the whole time because he thought he was gonna barf. So I described it, but somehow the only way that I can describe is that you've spent so much time with me that you're just in tune with my energy at this point. But he felt everything that I feel when I go through it. I'm just used to it.
You sure it just wasn't the cheeseburgers?
That just happened.
That was just now.
This was hours ago.
All right, we do have a call here on the line. We'll try and squeeze it in the few minutes what we have left. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast.
Hey, Tim. It's Colleen.
Hey, how you doing? Happy belated.
Thank you very much. I was listening to the show last week, and you and Erica seemed to be wondering about a couple of things that were in place at the Borden house, and I was hoping maybe I could use this opportunity to clear them up for you. Is
Sure.
that okay?
Absolutely. You just have to remind me of what it is that I was questioning, because I don't remember yesterday, let alone last week.
Of course I will. So one of the things that you guys were talking about was why John Morris may have been sleeping in the guest room just that one time, where he had always slept upstairs on the 3rd floor. And one of the things that I have generally thought about it, especially giving all those tours in the house, that third floor room that's near Bridget's room didn't have a window in it.
Ah.
And so my thought has always been, it had been pretty hot that week. I mean, not scorching like
right,
a
but it's
lot
still
of people
August,
will have you believe, but in the 80s. And that downstairs guest room has windows on 2 separate walls. It would have picked up any breezes a lot more readily.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point.
Thanks. And
also, it's a little weird.
Remember.
It's a little weird when you leave him alone upstairs with the maid too, isn't it?
It's kind of funky. Yeah, it is. But you know, and this is purely hearsay rumor. There has always been a little bit of a theory that maybe there was a thing with Bridget and John Morris. I've never been one to believe it, but it would be another reason why he might have slept up in that room. Mm-hmm. And they did always keep a metal bed up in that little tiny room.
Okay. See, like I said, I was thinking, 21st century. All I was thinking was bathroom. Never even dawned on me that there would have been a room there.
Right. And the other thing that you and Erica were discussing, and I feel really bad because when I gave her tour of the house when she was researching the book, I didn't mention, like I normally would, what all the bathrooms in the house had been before, in 1892. And so I forgot to mention that the bathroom on the 2nd floor was the clothes press.
Okay.
And that's where, that's where Lizzie and Emma kept their stuff. One last thing. You guys were talking about Bridget. And Bridget, maybe saying to Mrs. Borden, I kind of know stuff. You go up and make the bed up there. Mm-hmm. Lizzie and Emma took care of their own rooms on the 2nd floor. Mrs. Borden actually always had taken care of the guest room and hers and Andrew's rooms. They didn't want Bridget up on the 2nd floor. for privacy reasons. So her duties were predominantly confined to the first floor.
That makes sense. That's true.
So that's it.
She would have had her own back staircase and never even have to really interact with them at all.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely. And I think that part of, I think a big part of that telling is that Lizzie and Emma never bothered to learn her real name.
Right.
That's very telling that they wouldn't have wanted her association on that second floor at all.
That helps huge. And I'll also be thinking about that the next time that I go as well. I'll be like,
right.
Cool.
I'll know not to try to, invite her down to the second floor. Like, yeah, they don't want you here. All right.
All right.
Thank you so much for the info.
Thanks, Tim.
Have a good night. And yeah, so that's definitely helps with last week's episode. And if you haven't checked it out, I know Matt put the video up. I still have to put the audio up, but we'll get that up there this week. We're a little lagging behind. Matt just nodding at me. Yep. So, but the video's up. The video's up.
The video is up. Yep.
Okay. All right. So we'll make sure we get the audio up as well. We got about a minute left here. We're going to be on. We'll be on for the next couple of weeks. I know you've got one of these weeks. Don't you have a holiday party coming up? Or
next week.
Okay. So.
But I'll be back after that.
And we'll be here. We'll be doing holiday specials and all that stuff. And maybe we'll even do. We haven't done prediction episodes before.
No.
Like, it's not like you have to come in here and actually do psychic lifting.
Oh, okay.
It's like bogus predictions that we just make.
Okay.
We're like, oh, this is the year that they're gonna find Bigfoot this year, stuff like that, just goofy stuff.
This sounds fun.
Yeah, we do like paranormal year in review, like what happened in the last year and what we think will happen in the next year.
We also talk about things that we're gonna do with the show and that we never do.
Yeah,
right.
that's
no, I'm making.
That's also fun. Yeah, but it's fun that
this is
so like just say we're gonna do stuff and not do it.
This is what we call the New Year's resolution portion of Spooky South Coast, where we come up with all these ideas, and then never carry out any of them.
Ooh, I may have to call in for that one.
Although this year we have the chat room to remind us every week to do it.
Hold you accountable.
That's true. And now that Matt's found a way to put it on screen, it's even worse. We won't be able to escape it. All right, that does it for this week's show. For Matt, for Stephanie, for Porter, I'm Tim. We want you all to stay spooktacular.